Welcome. As women in business, we're so busy being busy. We're juggling life and business, and we're in the hustle. And that's when we lose sight of who we really are. This podcast is here to inspire and empower you to unleash you, the one that's been hiding behind all the roles that you play. Weekly episodes will help you to find fun, energy, and flow in life, and also give you tips and tools so you can have a successful yet simple business. My guests and myself talk all things mindset, spirituality, relationships, and of course business. Live the life that you've been dreaming of. Now, let's get to the good part. On today's episode of the Sharon Cliff podcast, we have Jacqueline Perez, or Jack, as I see you like to be known. So, Jack, tell the listeners all about who you are and what it is that you do.
Happy to do that, Sharon, and I will be as succinct as possible, right? Sometimes it's hard to take almost 59 years and put it in a tiny little verbal blurb, but here goes. Yes, I do go by Jack. It's short for Jacqueline, and I currently run a digital platform that the focus of the platform is to help change the paradigm of aging for women. My goal is to normalize aging. And of course, I don't expect to do it all by myself. And given some recent experiences, I now understand that I may not accomplish the goal before my lifespan. We may not accomplish this goal before our lifespan, but we're headed in the right direction. And it is the women like you and me and all the other women that I have met over the last few years. It's kind of our responsibility. So yeah, that's what I do. And I came up from a long line of, do the things you're supposed to do, like get the degree, get the husband, get the corporate job. None of that seemed to work for me very well. And so I had to find my own path. And when I realized that I was aging and I started not feeling good about myself, I started to believe that I was disappearing and becoming irrelevant. I began to get very curious about what my fellow sisters were feeling. Turns out, Sharon, that many of us feel that way in this stage of life.
Absolutely.
And I'd like that to change. I'd like that to be different.
Yeah, I love that. And I 100% agree with you. And I think, that as women collaboratively coming together, we might not see the change in our lifetime, like you mentioned, but the more of us that work together, the more of an impact, and the quicker we can condense time so that we can actually make an impact in a shorter time rather than later on. So I guess for me, the reason that I wanted to have you on the podcast is because the two things that you just mentioned that really resonated with me. And you spoke about an online platform that you created, and we're going to want to talk about that first. And then you also mentioned, normalizing aging, which I want to talk about second. So let's delve into the platform because, I'm 48. I was only 48 a couple of weeks ago, and midlife just sort of crept up on me, I guess, because 1 minute I'm 40, the next minute I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm 48. And I started to look around me, and women that were in my actual physical vicinity, so in real life, and then people that I spoke with in Facebook groups, whether they be business groups or sort of personal groups, mums groups, etc. Everyone that I sort of came involved with, whether it be in person or online, was all talking about they were at that stage in midlife where all the conversations were steered around the menopause conversations, or the earlier on, like late 30s and early 40s, people were talking about like the whole Instagram life and filters and all that sort of stuff. And then you had everyone else talking about menopause, and then people talking about retirement. There was no conversations there that were really about supporting women in midlife to be the best version of themselves and have fun and have a life, and not a lot around as you said, building that community where you can support women and empower them, and having articles that were relevant to what the topics were that women were facing and what challenges they were facing, which is why you created Cool Life. So tell me a bit about, that journey of going out there and find that similar situation where I go out there and I don't see much material to support that journey, whether it be health or mindset or whatever it is. I don't see much on that. So tell me, because obviously you've created that platform because you've also seen, that gap in the market. So tell me about the journey about, setting that up, and the other women that you obviously have now got in that community, about the impact that that platform's had for them, because I really want to share that so that, the women listening can say, I'm not alone. There's a whole community of women out there that are feeling the same way I am, and that they can, identify that there's not much out there to get that support. So tell us about that platform.
I'm happy to do that, Sharon. The platform is intrinsically linked, though, to the mission of normalizing aging, because I truly believe that the proliferation of information on what the opportunities are and the challenges are that happen during the second season of life, or the second act of life, or however you want to label it, that having that information and knowing that other women are experiencing very similar challenges and very similar situations, and then learning and getting empowerment and there's actionable items, actionable hacks and tips and advice on how these women who happen to be experts and thought leaders in those, and I call them lanes, right? Because, and I want to step back for just a second so that your audience can really truly understand the complexities, if they don't already get it, if they're not already living the complexities of this season of life. Maybe for those who are a little bit younger, who are about to face it, we deal with the physiological change. And mind you, that was my catalyst. I felt like poop. I was the worst version of me that I have ever been in my entire life when I went through the transition of menopause. And what was infuriating and frustrating was that I couldn't find good, actionable information for myself. Now, mind you, this is, I'm almost 59. So this is, 5 or 6 years ago. This wasn't yesterday. And I'm happy to report that over the last 5 years since I've been in this space, there has been a proliferation of women-driven brands that are addressing our needs. But when I was 30 pounds overweight, and when I had very bad brain fog, and when I couldn't regulate my emotions, that information, I couldn't find it. And all the medical doctors that I went to, I mean, I don't know what it's like in Australia, but here I got a lot of, that weight gain, it's just normal. It's menopause. You just have to get over it. And oh, you're anxious? Let me give you an antidepressant. Mask the symptoms. Why can't we talk about the root cause and handle that? The thing is, and I encourage anyone who's listening to this, if you're up against this, please don't take that as your last answer. You can shop for a better answer. I did. And boy, oh boy, am I glad I did, because guess what? I am living my best life. This is the best season once we get our ducks in a row. And if you're physically impaired, and for me, it was all hormones. I was so hormonally challenged that no lifestyle change that I implemented helped. Okay. Because lifestyle is important, right? You have to eat healthy, you have to exercise, you have to sleep. There's lots of things that we can do to help ourselves. But if your hormones are out of whack, it doesn't matter. Oh my goodness. I hope kitties are okay on your podcast, because it's early in the morning and she's not used to, so it's 6:30 in the morning for me right now. And this one's not used to me not being available to her in the morning for all of the pets and the loving. So she's going to be part of the podcast.
That is absolutely fine.
She's past menopause, though, by the way.
Well, she's a female, so she gets it.
Yeah. So she's left. So that's good. She didn't get what she wanted and she left. So to speak to your question about, what I'm hoping that the platform provides is what I'm hoping that the platform provides a repository where women can feel safe looking for answers to the questions they have about whatever's happening in their life. And we're talking about, and I already mentioned the physiological changes, but holy cow, the largest number of divorces, Sharon, are issued by women over 50. Okay. So now you're talking, do you date again? How do you date in midlife? How do you date with a dry vagina? What do you do when your parents are in a nursing facility and your teenager is stealing your car? That's, at least here, it's called the sandwich generation. And there's a huge number of women. And I'm not saying that men aren't caught in this as well, but statistically, it is shown that women carry the majority of the caregiving for elderly people in our country. I don't know what it's like in Australia, but women are saddled with the majority of the caregiving.
It's the same, yeah.
Right. Now you're also talking about, we're potentially the wealthiest cohort that's ever been on the planet, right? Because women, your parents are dying and you're getting inheritances. Women outlive men. So now you've got a lot of wealth, but we weren't really taught, at least in this country, we weren't really taught good money practices. So women sometimes don't know what to do with the money or how to manage it, or they were unaware of anything that was going on in their lives until death, until someone died, and now they're responsible. I could go on and on and on. Parenting 20 somethings. I don't know if you decided to be a mom, but I did. And I have discovered that parenting a 20 something child is kind of like parenting someone with a multi-personality disorder. It's insane. It's crazy making.
It is. I have 4 kids.
Well, that can make you feel really isolated and lonely. You know, it's far worse than BMI or smoking a pack of cigarettes a day on our longevity and our health: loneliness and isolation. It is a far bigger risk to our longevity and our health than almost any other lifestyle risk factor. I don't want women to feel alone. I don't want women to feel like it's only happening to them. And the reason I made the platform global, because I have thought leaders from your part of the world, New Zealand, Spain, Austria, all over Canada and the US, is because I want women to know that it is a global issue. And also, who knows? Someone from a different country, from a different culture, might have an idea or a hack that didn't occur to us. So why wouldn't we want more information? Information is power.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the things that you just mentioned there is that feeling of loneliness and being alone. And honestly, I see this 5 times a day at least at the moment, where women are posting in Facebook groups saying, I've just focused on my career and my kids, and I'm now mid-40s and I don't have many friends because I've focused all my energy on them. Or it could be that, we're at this stage of our lives, whether we're with partners or not, is that we may have moved, and so we've come to new locations and we don't know anyone. And I think that people don't think that at this age that we're going to be lonely. Like, we might think about it like when we're earlier on in life, or we might think about our our retiring parents thinking, they're going to be lonely, if they're in nursing homes, or they're older, so they're not as active in the community and they're not working. We think of them being lonely, but we don't think about women in midlife being lonely. And I hear that so much in the communities that I'm involved in. So I'm glad you have mentioned that as well, because I think listeners will resonate with that as well. So, and I think
it makes sense that it's an issue, right? Because if your kids launched, you no longer have that social group, right? I mean, you socialize with the parents of the other kids. If you are no longer working outside the home or corporate America, you've lost all those connections. And let's just say you weren't best friends with the people you worked with, but you had human interaction for huge parts of the day. Those elements, once those elements start to change or leave, you're left with having to figure out a whole new paradigm for how you're going to interact with other humans in the world. And that can
Yeah,
be
that's
very
right.
challenging. That can be very challenging. And the problem that I see that women face is that we were trained from, seems like cradle, to be something relative to somebody else, meaning be a good daughter, be a good partner, be a good mother, be a good employee. Do you see the trend?
Yeah, we're not being ourselves.
Right. What about just being a good Sharon or a
Yeah.
good Jack? What does that look like?
And I think that's something that's quite loud in the conversations and the community groups that I'm in too, because for me myself, like I've got a 22-year-old, a 19-year-old, and two 17-year-olds, and so this last 6 months they're all working full time. They've all got their licenses now because the two younger ones have just got their licenses and cars, so they're never home. So they're not relying on me to drive them somewhere or to do things for them. So I'm finding that I've got all this alone time where I'm lonely. And this whole chunk of my diary now has just cleared up because I don't have to be doing things for them. Like it's all about me now. And so I've got that thing where, I'm feeling lonely and I'm trying to, connect in with friends again because I have so much more time. So I think that's another issue as well, which we don't really think about until it's now like, oh, all the kids are out. Like, what am I going to do? And how am I going to fill that time? And you do feel lonely because so much of your day was taken up with running kids around or talking to kids or so much of that interaction that you have is now gone as well. So yeah, another challenge that we face.
Yes, but I encourage all women who feel that way to flip it on its head. That empty diary, now you can fill it with things that you want to do. Fill it with, this hour I'm going to read this great book. I'm going to learn a new language. I'm going to take a class. I'm going to volunteer. Oh my goodness, there are endless possibilities on how to refill that diary with the activities that interest you. And a lot of women say, well, I don't even know where to begin, and what if I don't really like it? Who cares? Pick something, anything, start it. You don't like it? Guess what? You're a grown-ass woman. Stop, redecide, go do something else. The key is to not consider when you decide you don't want to do something and you stop it as a failure. A lot of women get stuck with that. Like, I need to complete this. I need to have it be perfect. I can't do it until this happens. I can't do that till that happens. I call BS on that. I really do. I have way more failures on my balance sheet than I have successes.
I like to
Way more.
reframe them as opportunities. Like nothing's a failure because you at least tried it or you started it, and that's probably
Right.
more than what someone else would do. And there's always some kind of lesson. There's always something you can gain
Agree.
from it, no matter what. And sometimes at the time you might not realize that. It might not be till later on that you actually come back and go, actually, that's the lesson, or that's what I learned. Or it could be, might not even be something you learned. You may have started doing, that sewing class, and you might think that you failed because you couldn't sew or, you sewed your finger. But you might have actually made a connection. There might have been someone else at that class that you now can connect with, and that now you catch up, or that connection leads to something else. So I always think there's always some kind of lesson in that, or there's a connection that you made with someone that is going to help you somewhere else. So I think if you've got that sort of mindset, that can help turn those situations around.
Absolutely. And it's all mindset, it's perspective. Because I liked that you called me out on the fact that I said I have far more failures on my balance sheet, because you're right. I use that word because that word seems to be bandied around a lot by women in midlife and beyond. I hear it a lot. So I use that word because that language, I think, resonates. But thank you for calling me out on that and turning that on its end and saying and I 100% agree. Everything that quote unquote has been a failure, in hindsight, I've gotten some of the greatest gifts of my life from those particular situations.
Yeah.
It's perspective.
It is, absolutely. So yeah, so I think, you know, it's just really important to be able to have a community and have resources where women can feel empowered and supported. So the other thing that I wanted to touch on too is, you know, we can see, we can hear in your voice, we can tell by the stories that you just shared, is that, you know, you're really passionate about leading this change for women. And I'm so 100% there behind you as well. But, you know, when we talk about normalizing aging, you know, we see in Facebook groups and Instagram posts, and even just in conversations with friends, and even in, you know, business environments where people are talking about Botox and, you know, looking a certain way, wearing certain makeup, having eyelashes, like just doing all this sort of stuff. And it's like they feel that they have to have this certain image. But also just it's okay to age, you know, and it's okay to be who you are. You know, you've got wrinkles, that, well, that's because, you know, you've laughed lots, and, you know, that's what those lines are, you know. And, you know, to look and go, oh, I've got stretch marks. Yeah, but this body has, you know, bared, you know, 4 children. Just to really just embrace aging. And I think, you know, with the world, with the sort of Instagram world now, we think that, you know, that's not okay to age. You know, I set a mantra in my business a couple of months ago that I would never use a filter on Instagram. And I don't touch up photos and things like that. I don't have professional photo shoots. You know, I like things natural. And I'm just really set on, you know, just really being happy and comfortable with who I am and embrace aging. And so I want to hear your, you know, your perspective on, you know, because you talk about that normalizing aging. So share your knowledge around what you're doing to lead the change to normalize aging.
So when I say normalize aging, this is what I mean. Annie Lennox, you know Annie Lennox, the singer from the Books. Madonna, you know Madonna. They're about the same age. They have decided to take 2 very different paths. Madonna has done it all and then some, and Annie Lennox has chosen to go natural. We as women need to understand that both of those directions are normal, can be normal, should be normal, and should be accepted. We have got to stop this stuff about if you're not gray, you're not embracing aging. If you're doing Botox, you're not embracing aging. If you are gray, you're letting everyone down because you're letting yourself become invisible. Oh my God. Women, stop it. Stop it. This divisiveness, this is what keeps us from being the powerhouse that we really can be. Because to be honest with you, Sharon, so the boomers, the Gen Xers, and the elder millennials, we outnumber any other cohort on the planet. So if we are not divisive, if we are united, we can't be stopped. We will be heard. So when I say normalize aging, I also want a woman to understand that if their babies have left to go to college or moved out of the house, and they are literally shoving them out of the car with a passport in hand to get to the airport, that's normal. If they are going home and sitting in their room on their bed, on their child's bed, holding their child's lovey, crying, guess what? That's normal too. Right? I mean, there's a range of reactions and emotions that we experience, and we would be better off understanding that range and anything in that range is okay and normal, and support one another. I support my gray-haired sisters. This hair is not gray, and it's not gray not because it doesn't want to be. It's not gray because I won't let it be. Because that's
mine is gray.
But I love, but see what I'm saying is that there's room for the Annie Lennoxes of the world and the Madonnas of the world and everything in between.
Yeah, and I think it's like, you know, as you said, they're both normal. They've taken different paths, and they're both acceptable, and they should be, and that's 100%. But I think that, you know, don't feel that you need to change who you are, and, you know, if that's not something that that you think, I'm just trying to word this. So if, you know, like I don't have a problem with anyone who has Botox and improve themselves because they want to. That's 100%, you know, support that. It's that but the ones that are getting that work done because they feel they have to, because they see everyone else doing it. That's where I was coming from with saying, you know, like embracing your age and you know, and getting older. But you know, if you're doing, you know, Botox or dyeing your hair, like I dye my hair because I'm actually normally blonde, but I've gone to dark, but because I have grey hair coming through. So I color my hair because I don't like the grey. But I wouldn't be saying,
I don't like the gray on me either.
Yeah.
My hair is too thin because menopause. I lost a ton of hair. And so if I go, just, it doesn't look good. And I see some out there with these long, luscious, great, beautiful gray hair. And I'm like, well, gosh, if mine kind of look like that, I'd consider it, but mine look like that. And I don't feel good that way.
Yeah,
and
that's right. 100%.
It's not anybody else, Sharon. It's about me.
Absolutely. So yeah, 100%.
Encourage all of your listeners, dig deep. What do you want? Who cares what everybody else wants? What do you want? And if you want to do Botox, you should do Botox, and you shouldn't let other people shame you about doing it. And if you don't want to do Botox, don't do it. And you shouldn't let anyone else shame you for not doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And that's the point that, you know, that I wanted to get across, is that if you're doing Botox for you and that makes you feel great and it gives you confidence, absolutely 100%. And don't let anyone, you know, tell you that you shouldn't do it. But if you're doing it because everyone else is doing it or someone's told you should do it and that's not what you want to do, then don't do it. Don't feel pressured. You know, embrace where you're at. So the same with hair, like as we said with grey hair, I do mine because I can't stand the grey.
Isn't true for everything though, not just aging?
Absolutely.
It's just sort of a universal truth that we really need to figure out internally who we are and what we want out of life and how we want to get it, and not look left and not look right and not look up or down about what's happening around you. Look inside and do that.
Yeah.
But it's not just about Botox, and it's not just about, you know, what clothes to wear. It's everything from, do I want to be the kind of midlife and beyond woman who spends her time with her grandchildren baking cookies? Is that what I want? And if that's what I want, that's normal. But maybe I'm not that person. Maybe I'm not that big into being the grandmother and I want to go hike Mount Kilimanjaro. Well, you know what? That's okay too. And we should not shame the woman who gets joy and fulfillment out of spending time with her grandchildren making cookies any more than we should shame the woman who decides that she's not into her grandchildren and wants to hike the mountain.
Yeah.
They're
Absolutely.
both okay.
And I think that's
mutually exclusive. The chick hiking the mountain can then come home and bake cookies for her grandkids. You can do both.
Yeah, that's right. You can do both. Yeah, and you can have it all. So yeah, that, you know, great points there that you make. And so just with wrapping up the interview for today, if you could give advice to, you know, women out there that are, you know, at this point of their life, what are your top three pieces of advice that you would say to them? So knowing what you know now and thinking, you know, with women who aren't as you know, as educated and knowledgeable in all the topics that we've just spoken about, and you know, the topics that you're expert in the Cool Life platform talk about, what are the three things?
So the first thing is you have to keep your machine as workable as possible. And I mean, I think of my body as the machine. It is the thing that I walk around in or run around in. If the machine isn't working, then forget about everything else. You can't, who cares whether you do Botox or not, if you can't walk down the street. So honestly, getting your machine to be as functional as you can. And I know some people are dealing with some really big health issues, and health issues become larger and larger the older we get. But I bet there's something you can do that you're not doing today that could make your machine work just a little bit better. So that's the first thing, is I keep my machine Like, you take care of your car, you can go buy a new car, but guess what can't you buy a new one of? Your machine.
Yeah.
So that's really I think one of the most important things. The other thing is, and I'm taking this from one of my thought leaders, Kay Newton, who is living in Mallorca, Spain. Be sensibly selfish. Be sensibly selfish. That stupid adage, that saying that I'm so tired of hearing about, when the oxygen mask drops from the airplane, you have to put it on yourself first. People, there's a reason that in a life-threatening situation, they tell you to do that. Because if you don't take care of you, if you're not sensibly selfish, there's nothing left to give anyone else.
Yeah, that's right.
Nothing left to give anyone else. And then last is that there is a huge chasm, big space between mini skirts and Depends, adult diapers. And in that space, in that chasm, that is where I believe we can live the coolest life ever, the biggest, coolest life. You've got this. You can do this. And if you need help or encouragement or inspiration, I've got over 65 women from around the world sharing their wisdom and inspiration for free. Go to Cool Life, read some inspirational blogs and posts and articles. You want to reach out to one of these individuals for more help and more resources? You can do that. Just go to the About page, look at their bios, contact them, join their groups. The resources are out there for you not to have to do this alone, and for you to realize that this is the best season of life. This beats everything. You're not responsible for much. You can be responsible for you now in a way that you weren't allowed to before. So take advantage of it.
That's right. I so agree with you. I think this is the best season. Like, and I'm just so, so excited and so pumped. It's like I get to be me again and rediscover who I am and what I want, and I can do anything. Okay, you still got responsibility to kids, but they're off doing their own thing. So yeah, I think it's an exciting time.
But it's way better than the first time that we were like that, because the first time we were like that as kids, we were self-indulgent and didn't know anything.
Yeah, that's right.
Now you get to do it with a ton of wisdom and experience and knowledge of already some of the things that you love to do and don't like to do. So think about how better prepared you are to focus on yourself. You're so much better prepared than you were when you were younger.
Absolutely. So great. Well, Jack, thank you so much for your interview today. And I'm sure that, all the women out there listening now just feel that they're not alone. They know how much support's out there. And I think it really is just that sort of checking with them to say, you know what, go inside to find out who you actually are and who you want to be. Go and make it happen, and we'll put the links to Cool Life up so that the women can go out there and see what support's out there. Have a look at all the amazing resources that you've got, because I've had a look and it is really good. And as you said, it's free to join, and I'll definitely be doing that. And thank you so much for your time. And reach out if you want to talk to Jack more about what she's up to and her passions for women in midlife. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon. It was a pleasure to be here.
Before you press stop, thanks for listening to today's episode. And if you enjoyed this episode, do the 3 S's. Subscribe so you never miss an episode each Thursday. Shout out to your community so they can be inspired and empowered. And share. Share with me your aha moments and your takeaways. By doing this, it helps this podcast to inspire and impact more women globally so they can have a fulfilling life and business. I would love for you to connect with me on Instagram, The Sharon Cliff. And if you want to know more about me or how you can work with me, head to my website, sharoncliff.com.au. See you next time.